Today we have a reaction content that actually comes from a request via Discord, and partially as a response to my takes on the Casterus passive. So this is actually something that I'm actually looking forward to doing. This comes from Reddit. We don't normally do Reddit reactions, but it's actually on the list of things that I always wanted to do reactions to, because one of the two social media sites that I'm on primarily is Reddit. I'm mostly on YouTube and I'm mostly on Reddit. You can usually find me on one of those two places. I'm Sheets Inc. on Reddit for those who don't know. And I'm actually very active on about 5 or 6 different subreddits. I guess Discord if you want a third one, but I'm mostly on either my Discords with my friends, on Floor's Discord, or I'm on my own personal Discord. So I don't usually almost consider it a social media site anymore. It's more of a bubble than anything else. But let's get into it. So anyway, today we're here to react to the 3.2 Developer Radio. Or, more specifically, an April Fool's joke from earlier this week. This is going to be the 3.2 Amphoreus Mythus Edition Developer Radio. I'm actually really excited to see what's going to be in this. So, probably going to be very interesting. Alright, let's see what we have to look forward to in this developer radio. Voice language changer and speed mode. In version 3.3, we added the voice transition into language setting that lets you instantly switch the voice acting to a different language while playing the story. That's actually a pretty cool feature. I know this is an April Fool's joke and it's not real, but that's actually a pretty interesting feature. It would be very interesting to be able to do it on the fly. I know the reason why we actually don't have this as a feature in the game is because for those who have played Hoyo games in multiple languages before, you actually have to download an entire voice pack separately. And it's basically adding to the file size of the game at that point. Being able to switch them on the fly in the settings would be really nice. It's something that you can do in most games, but it's only hard to do in a game like HSR or Genshin because of the sheer file sizes that we're dealing with. In Shadowverse, it's as easy as pressing a button, but it's really interesting to see that whoever created this, who did create this? This was made by Critical Office 9422 on Reddit. And, that's a pretty interesting idea. Select the languages in the settings and enable the feature by pressing the new... Is that a lips button? Looks like lips to me. You can also fill in the missing voices EN voice pack without replacing the whole voice pack by double tapping. I know things are a little bit complicated right now with the EN voicing, with the people striking in solidarity, and with what's recently been going on in Genshin, I wouldn't be surprised if the people that are striking in solidarity are about to get replaced in either 3.3 or 3.4. It's going to be really sad to see them go. And I do stand with the Union still to this day. That even though I do understand that they're making a bit of an ass of themselves and the public image is starting to sway in the other favor. But I have another video on that separately, or more or less, there's just a clip from one of my streams where I talk about that in a little bit more detail, so we won't get into that here. There is also a ×2 button that lets you play the story at ×2 speed. Oh, that reminds me. Recently they re-released... Recently? Oh, this is like almost... This just shows you how my concept of time is faded as an old man. But there was they re-released Final Fantasy XII with a ×2 button that lets you play the whole game in ×2 game speed. And it's an interesting feature, it's an interesting concept. It's a good compromise considering that they really don't want to give us a skip button. I'm not one of the people that's an advocate for the skip button, but I would be in favor of a ×2 speed button for the story. I like to stream the story at my own pace. I'm a visual novel channel, so I read books that don't have visuals and actions and cutscenes, so I actually enjoy the current pace of the Honkai Star Rail story. A longer story just means more content for me. But a ×2 speed would be really nice. Especially if you're going to have an auto feature. ×2 speed would be nice. Personally, a feature that I've actually wanted in Honkai Star Rail for a long time, because for those who watched my early streams of the story, I played through like all of Belobog at ×1 speed. I actually enjoyed the normal default speed of the game. And personally, I do think it's a little too slow. But I also think ×2 is actually a little bit too fast. I want them to add a ×1.5 speed button for combat. Just let those voice lines breathe a little. Because I just feel like it's just a little bit too fast. Because it limits the voice acting and what lines we can have in an ult line. Like, just look at Himiko trying to blurt out that really ridiculously long line whenever she pulls out her ult. I'm amazed that they didn't alter that for a shortened version. No, everyone. Can be Polygon. What are you doing here? I can't believe I missed this on April Fool's. That being said, I'm not very active on the Honkai Star Rail subreddit as often as I used to be. I mainly check in there every now and then to look at the memes. Feature change for the main stat now available. Furthermore, you can now change the main stat of an existing relic by pressing the rework or hammer button as a shortcut to the relic interface. Each change costs 2 self-modeling resin. I feel like that's a little bit expensive, but it's... Oh, looks like there's more getting into this. Variable dye and wishful resin adjustments. 1 self-modeling resin plus 3 equals custom main stat, custom substat ×2. Yeah, that's what it already cost. Now, 1 self-modeling resin exchanges into a self-modeling dye. That, I think, would be more fair. I actually am very much against the variable dice. I was kind of vocal about how I hated the variable dice, or whatever the equivalent thingy was when they added it to Genshin. I don't think it's fair. Rerolling a substat, like statistically speaking, it's like a 1 in like 3,000 that you're going to get the actual substats that you want, or something ridiculous like that. They could make rerolling the substat rolls something that scales. Like in loot box games, it's pretty normal for you to be able to re-roll the contents of a loot box, but then every time you re-roll it, it gets more and more expensive. Like, they could make it cost like 100,000 credits to re-roll your substats, and then just have it double every single time, and that would probably still be more than fair, because realistically, to get the perfect substats, you're going to have to roll every single one of these things like 125 times or 150 something times. Because, like, the die isn't really in your favor. It's just more RNG. You're just giving yourself a second chance. The rolls are still bad. Cheaper subset customization, and a 1-to-1 exchange for variable dice. I think that we should get more than a 1-to-1 exchange for self-modeling resin for the substat stuff, too. Or, you know what? Here's a fun thought. How about instead of self-modeling resin, or the idea of the wishful resin, let's just replace it all with Trailblaze power. It costs 40 Trailblaze power to get relics in the first place. How about if I spend 40 Trailblaze power instead of getting 2 to 3 random relics? What if I could spend 40 Trailblaze power to just make 1 custom relic? Or like make it make it more fair. Let's say I can spend 100 Trailblaze power to make a custom relic. You'd only be able to make 1 a day, basically, or 3 a day, which is still not even a unit's worth. And that means that you're spending an entire day of other things you could be doing to make 1 relic piece. I think I'm just spitballing here. There could probably be a better rate for that, or something that's more fair and equitable. I honestly think that we should be using credits more often as a currency in Honkai Star Rail, because I actually was talking about this in a Discord chat with Fleur a while back. But credits as a currency in Honkai Star Rail have kind of started to become meaningless. Nothing really uses the currency. We have too many different currencies already. And I haven't pointed it out that the amount of credits it takes to like max out a trace from like level 1 to 10 is significantly less than what it is to max out a trace from, or to max out a talent from 1 to 10 in Genshin. It's like almost 1.6 million or something to max out a single, like, a talent in Genshin, but like in maxing out a single trace in Honkai Star Rail, it's like 600k. It's so little money. Store updates. Jokes come true. This is the store that you spend the end game points on, right? Jokes come true store now sells wishful resin and variable dice. We also tip some of the price to be cheaper. I think that at some point they actually will do this. I think they will probably put the wishful resin and variable dice in there. They'll probably limit it to like 1 of 1 or 3 of 3. And they'll probably just make the price relative to the self-modeling. Like, whatever the self-modeling is, I'm sure that they'll just make it equivalent. I can definitely see them doing this. That being said, if you look in the store right now, they have those ridiculous Herta contracts where you can basically spend, like, the equivalent of $26 to get, like, self-modeling resin and variable dice and whatnot. It's, like, a lot of money. Whatever. I don't know what it actually is off the top of my head. It's kind of ridiculous. And store update, Starlight Exchange. You can now buy 2 4-stars and 7 5-star gacha light cones in the Starlight Exchange. It'll change to different pool after reset. I swear this sounded cooler in my head. Where's Aha, by the way? I love these little conversations between Aha and Mythus in the bottom comment section. That's kind of funny. So, we're kind of actually getting this now in what's going on with current, like, 3.2, since we're going to have, like, the new characters that are going to be rotating through the shop, I guess. But we have that silly new currency that only really the whales and people that have, like, a bunch of E6 standard units are ever going to get. That being said, they might add those new, what are they called? The spirit tokens or whatever. They might start adding those to the battle pass at some point. I could see it being a relatively good thing. But the Starlight Exchange, I'm fine with this. I am probably one of the few people that I know that I talk to that actually buys the light cones and the characters from the Starlight Exchange. Almost all of my friends and all the people that I know that play, they just dump them into the new tickets. But I don't really see that is worth it. Because, like, for me, this is, like, just an easy way to guarantee the 4 stars I want, and an easy way to guarantee the light cones that I want. Because, like, there's no guarantee I'm going to get the 5-star light cones. Losing, like, I don't pull on the light cone banner often enough to lose 50-50 to it, or 75-25, which means you're more likely to win on the light cone banner to lose, so you might not ever get a single one of these outside of buying it. It's just, like, mathematically less likely. And I don't like it when people shame me when I spend 600 or whatever on one of these. I've bought every single one of these light cones. I've been only playing since 1.3, I think. And I have gotten enough as a light spender. I've spent maybe $200 on this game across 2 years. All my streams are live. You could probably fact check me. I know it's the exact amount is above $200, but that's nearly just nitpicking. But I have bought in every single one of these cones from the store. At least one copy. And then I've gotten, via the gacha, 3 of these, I think. I've gotten Branyas. I've gotten Yanqing's. I think I've gotten one of Bailu's. And I've gotten one of Welt's. I have never gotten one of Himiko's from the light cone pulls ever. I've never gotten one of Clara's from the light cone pulls ever. So the only way I've ever would have obtained those so far in 2 years was because I bought them here. I almost have S5 of Branyas and Yanqing's, because it almost always seems to give me that one. I think the first 5-star light cone I ever got on my account actually was Japart's light cone from the gacha. I think I got it from a standard banner pull. Alright, let's keep going through this. Hello everyone, Mr. Aha here, back with another announcement. Speaking of jokes come true, you know what will also come true? Elation is a playable path! Not happening. Also change your profile pic. Aw, you're no fun. Who are you, Anna? Anyway, about playable path, we added a skill tree for each one. This is kind of what the trace system already is. Kit customization, update path routes. So I wonder what this idea concept is. Path routes gives additional talents to characters based on path. Unlock this feature in the Divergent universe and slowly unlock each node. A character will have a total of 5 talent points. Talent points are used to activate selected talents from the path routes. For that character, each talent costs 1 to 2 talent points, and you can reselect the talents by deactivating the already activated and indicated ones by a bright dot, I guess. So a glorified trace system that gave your characters customizable abilities. And that's where this next feature comes in to make it more interesting. Okay, so we're expanding on this. Introducing gadgets. Oh no, I'm getting Genshin flashbacks. Derived from Remembrance, Enigmata followers infused fake memories into broken light cones to create gadgets. Once equipped, it allows the user to use the assist in battle. Interesting. I also like where they put it on the HUD. I actually had a funny theory recently where I was talking about this with some of my friends, but there's enough space on screen, we might actually just get 5-person teams at some point. But they could add a third button or something, or like when you're playing in Simulated Universe or DU, there's sometimes that gold button that's like right above the skill and basic attack. They could just put a button somewhere on that section of the screen and give everyone like a third ability. If they really want to increase the game complexity at some point. The easy one I would recommend is like maybe a pass or like a defend button. That gives you like maybe like some defensive stats and then like 2 skill points. That's one of my suggestions. Assist can be used outside of the turn, similar to Ultimate. It consumes a percentage of a shared energy pool called tension points, which comes from battling similar to energy system. So what does it have to do with the new path route system? Yeah, what does that have to do with the path route system? Gadget path resonance. Each gadget is imbued with a certain path based on your role that can resonate with the path routes. It allows the user to activate additional talents from that path. So, craft gadget, gadget rolled destruction, equip gadget to activate destruction talents from path routes. Okay, that's kind of interesting. For simplicity, think of it like this. Okay, thank you, Mythus. Whenever I hear the word Mythus, I don't know if maybe I'll put it on screen, but I think of like the Magic the Gathering card, Mythus of Illuna. That specific, every time I hear the word Mythus, that card that I played a lot in Standard always pops into my head. Because that's Mythos, not Mythus. Technically. Alright, how do I craft a gadget? At Equilibrium level 4 unlocks the synthesizer feature to craft gadgets by combining 2 different 4-star path materials from the Red Calyx. Different recipe creates a different gadget. Each gadget costs 1, whatever this material is, light cone piece. Light cone pieces are obtainable through salvaging 3-star light cones. Oh, could I salvage a 4 or 5-star light cone and get even more of them? A 3-star light cone is equal to 10 light cone pieces. Each gadget will have a combined traits from the 2 path materials that's made of. For example, Remembrance and Erudition gadget will summon a Memo Sprite that deals AoE damage. Lastly, gadgets are classified into 3 types, depending on how and each of them function. Support, sustain, damage. I honestly feel like those categories are a little bit too broad. I know that everybody likes to lump support, sustain, damage, but I feel like Nihility gets a bit of a bad rap. They aren't really support units. Then we have like the weird sub-DPS idea and concept, but I'm just nitpicking at this point. Each gadget has a path for path resonance, and a TP consumption rate that defines how much TP a gadget will... Tension points, because it was talking about the tension points. I remember, my brain works. a TP gadget will consume for each usage. These are the two statuses varied on each gadget based on your role when crafting. Destruction, Hunt, Erudition, Preservation, Nihility, Harmony, Abundance, Remembrance, no Elation. Boo! Give me the Elation path. Just put it in the game already. Have I ever talked about this? I actually have a really interesting idea for the Elation path. So, in the simulated universe, the Elation path is the follow-up path, and it cares about follow-ups, but it has another mechanic, which is the aftertaste mechanic, where it's about doing random damage elements. So I had a funny idea. What if we get an Elation path at some point down the line where their gimmick is they just are multiple elements? Like their skill is ice, and then their ultimate is fire, and then their basic attack is physical, or something like that. Or they have an ability that lets them switch types. Like they enter an enhanced state, like Might does, and now they go from an imaginary unit to a physical unit. Or something wacky like that. That's my idea for an Elation path. And if you wanted my idea of what I hoped the Remembrance path would have been, because Remembrance is the path that creates the light cones, my thought would have been that they would have just been like a catch-all class where they're just pretty generic, but they could use any light cone from any other class. That's what I thought Remembrance would be, and that was what my theory was. I think I talked about that when I did my reaction to Aglaya's drip feed way back when, but that's a fun thought for those who haven't heard or seen my reaction to that. There is a lot of these. I know that there's a 20 image limit on Reddit, because I used to upload comics to Reddit. I still do, technically, but I have put my comic on hiatus. So, I don't know what number we're on, but we gotta be getting close to the end at this point. Or we're at the middle point. We're about halfway through, it seems. Love these gadgets. But we already have relics. Now we have to farm those? I don't know, man. Some people might not like it. Don't worry, relic farming will also get some serious new features and adjustments. Daily challenge is coming to relic farming. Daily challenge. At Equilibrium level 6 unlocks a difficulty 7 for guaranteed 3 5-star relics in the Cavern of Corrosion. They should just do this at some point. We should have an Equilibrium level 7 at this point. 3 5-star relics in the Cavern of Corrosion. Also unlocks difficulty X. That can only be played once per day. It is an equivalent to an MOC Stage 10, and similar to it, it will have a limited cycle system and a star rating. Oh, I hate that. I already don't like the fact that MOC is a DPS check. I don't need to do that to farm relics. That is a horrible idea. You can pin which type and which part of the relic you want to farm in difficulty X. The amount of relics will be varied based on your star rating upon completion. 3 stars, 7 5-star relics, 14 4-star relics, 2 star, 4 5-star relics, 8 4-star relics, and 1 star, 2 5-star relics, 4 4. That's just normal. Okay, here's my actual suggestion on how we should be revamping how you get the, This is how I feel like we should be redoing the Cavern of Corrosion. I've had problems with this in Genshin 2. We should be able to not have 2 relic sets in one cavern set. We should be able to pick which one of the 2 we're farming for. That would simplify relic farming by itself. And this silly event they do where it's like 2 times or 3 times drop rate every so often, no, get rid of that. Just make those increased drop rates the default drop rate. And then get rid of that event forever. We should not be farming or spending like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 Trailblaze power to farm Firefly relics, only to like get like 100 pieces because it gave you all the relics that Fei Xiao wanted instead. Totally not talking from experience. I have no bias against Fei Xiao. Aha Gaming Terraria. What is going on here? What are you doing? What do you mean? Back to the mine, of course. Feels like you were referring to that other game. The one with the reskin mobs update? Alright, let's not get too far into that. Seriously, I thought you were monster hunting. Why suddenly decide to join me here? No real reason. I was planning to do multi, but everyone was busy, so I got bored. I don't know. I feel like games nowadays are either too combat-oriented or too story-heavy. You mean you want variety content? Try to switch to other game genre. Well, recently, Roblox recently I tried Roblox to see what the hype is about. That game was too ADHD even for me. To be frank, that's not a game, but a platform. I'm sure there are hidden gems within. Man, I just wish the game we play had variety content. That's a good idea, huh? I actually think that there's plenty of variety in HSR. This is a bit of a take that not everyone agrees with me with, but there are a significant amount that do. I think that the addition of more puzzles and more combat to the story, even if it breaks up the story a little bit, is fine. Because when you're having to press A to advance dialogue for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, that's kind of bad. So, in like 3.1, it was about a 10-hour story, but about 2 of that hours was what some people refer to as gameplay. And apparently people get mad if there's too much gameplay in their story. I play visual novels, and it's been a long-running joke on my channel that how dare they interrupt my story with gameplay. I love story, I love gameplay, so I never really complain if I get too much more than one, and that's why we make it a joke on this channel. That if there's too much story, that's not a bad thing. It is a preferential thing. You can never have too much story, you can never have too little gameplay. Each person has their own preferences. People like Ryuko-sensei want more gameplay, and then everyone complained about it in 3.0 because they're all hypocrites. They gave you more gameplay. You said you didn't have enough gameplay in Penacony, that the story was too much dialogue. Well, they gave you that in Amphoreus, and now you're complaining that there's too many puzzles, not enough cutscenes. Go read a book. Look, tell me how many cutscenes you find in there. Terror Threshold. In version 3.3, a new horror dungeon co-op game mode will be added to the challenge players to hide from enemies and solve puzzles while staying alive as long as possible. Now, I actually do have an idea for a new endgame mode, because one of the biggest concerns that I've had for the longevity of this game is the fact that every endgame mode is a DPS check. I would like more variety in the endgame. How about an endgame mode that rewards you for having a large variety of characters? I am one of the people that actually likes Imaginarium Theater in Genshin. I think it's a cool concept. I like it better than Spiral Abyss. That being said, my idea for a new game mode in Honkai Star Rail would be like a cross between Pure Fiction and MOC/Apocalyptic Shadow. My idea for a new endgame mode would be a horde mode, where it's wave after wave after wave of enemies, but instead of having 5 cycles to get everyone dead, there is no end to the waves. You go until you can't die, and each new wave, the numbers get harder, the enemies get hit harder, they have more health, and they get harder to kill. And then, like, we could make a point system, and then that can determine 1, 2, 3 stars. But then it could just be a way for the whales to show off, to see how far they can physically go, and then we have the rewards threshold set at a low enough bar where everyone can achieve it. It would also be a mode that actually motivates people to maybe put 2 sustains on a team. Has anyone else been playing Honkai Star Rail long enough to remember when they used to have to put 2 sustains on a team to stay alive? I used to run March and Fire Trailblazer on the same team constantly, just to help me clear the higher conundrums of simulated universe. Acheron discovered a multi-layered white hole and sent the coordinates to you. She suspects it might have something to do with Device 9. Or Ix. I still don't know what the correct pronunciation on that is. I'm not the biggest of lore heads, but I do read it. To be fair, though, technically any name you pronounce in one of these games is the correct pronunciation until they pronounce it in-game. Isn't that right, Cyrene? Inside, you found an abandoned lab that's connected to some familiar places that you have visited. In this illusion, found out more in the Terror Threshold. So how was the lore? Quite cheesy, but I'm intrigued. Entertain me. Then let's move on to the meat and the beaten potatoes. Terror Threshold. In Terror Threshold, there will be 100 interconnected areas separated by a door, each with different kinds of puzzles, traps. Special areas might contain unique stuff. Definitely not inspired by a certain door game. I'm not entirely sure what they're referencing. Are they talking about, like, what's that game that people have been playing a lot lately? That's supposed to be like a parody of how far capitalism has gone wrong. Something company. I don't know. I don't play it. Some of my friends do, but I can't remember the name of it. It escapes me. You will play as your selected character in first-person perspective, with your friends being caught by an enemy. Being caught by an enemy won't trigger a battle, but a jump scare to decrease your HP. Okay. Is that someone playing as Ron May over there? The image quality is not the best. Some special enemies are harder to predict and can instantly kill you, because everybody loves those. Learn their pattern, use your surroundings, and items and character techniques to avoid them. Okay. Sela and Moza are going to have to be banned in this mode. Now, what's a turn-based game without turn-based combat? Area 50 and 100 will have a hardcore boss that you have to defeat together. Each player will control one character in the team and can switch their character in battle. A player will lose if all their characters have died. Okay. I feel like we're missing some content mechanics on how this works. Each player can pick the same character. If there are not enough players in the team, others can fill in the missing slots and have control over the slot in the battle. Each player must bring 2 teams. One for the boss battle, one for exploration. Losing some characters in the boss battle won't affect the exploration team, and vice versa. Okay, then where's the challenge? Furthermore, pets now have a technique that can be used for exploration. Pet technique doesn't consume technique points, but does have a cooldown. First time completion through all 100 areas will reward you with a free Acheron. Claim for free Acheron. I don't want Acheron on my account. I'm actually not a big fan of her. I know I'm in the minority. I don't like her as a character. I feel like she was an unnecessary addition to the Penacony plot that actually bogged down the story. And also, I think that she's one of the reasons why we have a big HP inflation problem. Because she was, like, doubling what Jing Liu's damage was at her release at the time. Ron May is also responsible. Ron May increasing the overall team damage is a big problem. But I'm not going to get into that here. You can watch somebody else on that. We're still talking about this Terror Threshold game mode. Aside from Stellar Jades, there are also some monthly rewards you can claim. Wallpapers, chat bubbles, home decorations, pets, profile pics. We also added 3 types of rewards. Custom battle UI. We can enhance and enhance. Oh, I guess it's like the frames around the buttons so we can make them all look neat. I mean, it's a cool customization. I don't know why we don't have stuff like that in the game. We might get it at some point, to be honest. Idle actions, like for the photo mode. And skins. I think that skins are going to start coming into the game at some point. But one of the big problems we have with skins in Honkai Star Rail, as well as Genshin, is the way that the gacha is structured. It's kind of hard for them to sell and market skins, because you would have to do it to characters that most of the people would either have or not have. Which, we had this problem in Genshin Impact, where it was with the Lantern Rite, not this year, but last year, where they gave a new skin to Shenhe and Ganyu. And I cannot remember for the life of me if either of them got a rerun that year. I think Ganyu was on the Chronicled Wish, so you could get her that year. But I think Shenhe only had her most recent rerun, like, within the last couple months. And we're already in 2025. So, if Honkai Star Rail wants to start selling skins, either it's going to be for 4-star units that nobody uses, which is why everyone's complaining about the March 7th skin. I like it. I still use Preservation March. But I am not most people. And there's another problem with, and still talking on the problem with skins, is if we put out a Caster's skin in 3.3, well, I hope you pulled her in 3.2, because otherwise you can't, there's no purpose to buying this skin. Part of the problem with having characters that are limited banner characters means that outside of reruns, whatever the dev time to make a skin is significantly less than the dev time to make, like, a new character. So unless they want to rerun the characters every single time they make out a new skin for them, it's going to be really hard for them to align or put other characters in reruns. Or, like, the more popular characters are just going to get rerun over and over and over again, and some characters will never get a rerun. Who's excited for the Ratio rerun in 3.2? It's his first rerun. It only took 1 year and 4 months. Let's just keep going. Oh, are we done with this mode? Terror Threshold. And we're past the halfway point, it seems. In the future, we also plan to bring more co-op features such as rankings, custom battle, and more, so stay tuned. Huh? That's alright. Almost as a bonus, here's a little teaser for the future update. New position-based combat. Defend. Characters will soon be able to stand in front of an ally to defend them using the new Defend button. Defending can regenerate a skill point and higher tension points. Enemies will also have this ability. Okay, this actually reminds me. I did mention this a little bit earlier about how they could add a Defend button, but I also had a funny idea for a preservation unit where we could have a preservation unit where they just get down Mr. President and they can jump in front and take the hit for somebody. That would be a very interesting way we could do a new preservation unit. Because, like, Fu Xuan already does damage sharing, but imagine if one could just intercept the attack. That would be kind of neat. I thought about this when I was discussing possible Blade reworks. Imagine if we gave Blade an ability where he could intercept a hit for somebody to add to his own hit count. That'd be pretty neat. New position-based combat. Piercing. Single target damage can pierce the line of entities. Both allies and enemies will have this ability in the future. I feel like that needs to be elaborated on. I don't know what you're trying to describe with that. New combat playstyle. Elemental Fusion. Along with position-based combat, each character will resonate with the adjacent allies. Players can swap the position of each character mid-battle to create a unique elemental resonance and fuse two elements into a new one. Each elemental fusion will have a different properties you can take advantage of. Oh, what if we add dodging and a bullet hell too? Bro, this is a turn-based game, not a real action game. Bet. Okay, so elemental resonance is a weird feature that Genshin Impact has that Honkai Star Rail doesn't, and I think it would be really neat if they added it. Like having 2 ice units on your team raises your team's crit rate, or having 2 fire characters on your team raises your team's, like, attack. I feel like that's a cool mechanic that they could easily implement. It would also diversify team building. And I would love to have something that cares about, like, my team is all imaginary units. My team is all physical units. My team has no 2 units that match the same element. National. I think it'd be really neat if they added something like that. I also think it would be nice if we had an elemental resistance stat on our characters where we could resist damage types, because it kind of feels weird that we have damage types, the enemies have damage types, but we don't care about what damage types the enemy uses. You can tell I used to play Pokemon when I grew up. This is just Undertale. Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4, 9:15, 8 p.m. EST. Error 404 not found. Great. Just to make it clear, we won't add dodging or bullet hell. At least for now. Thanks for sticking by. See you later. Well, this was a fun little nod, and there was some actually interesting ideas in here. I think the ones that I like the most out of all of these was, I do think that being able to change the language on the fly and the sound settings, like just mid-thing, would be nice if it wasn't for the large amount of file sizes involved. I like the idea of a speed up or a ×2 speed for the gameplay. I don't know how I feel about this, but I do think like a 1-to-1 self-modeling for the reroll, I think is something that might happen at some point, because I do think the dice is not really fair. Because it's like right now 3 of these to 1 dice, if I remember correctly. And this system is garbage, and any improvement to it would be an improvement, in my opinion. Now, the jokes come true. Them adding these to the stores, cool, do it. Adding more light cones to the shop, even if it rotates out every 3 patches or so, cool, do it. I'm all for that. The customizable path routes. I like this idea in concept. There's a bit of a problem that Star Rail has had. I want to say ever since Fushuan got added to the game, where they're starting to... Some of the paths are starting to eat into one of each other's niches. Where, like, Fushuan is technically a harmony unit and a preservation unit at this point. So it's like, if we had, like, something that built on the path system more, where we could have it so, like, hey, everybody in this path gets this buff, we would be able to get rid of some of, like, the generic traces that some of the characters have, like that abundance trace where it's like, you have resistance to crowd control or whatever. Stuff like that. This could be a good way to supplement that. I don't know if this system would be how I implement that. Another thing we could do, this is something I've talked about on my own time, we could start just adding in characters that are multiple paths. Food for thought. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Y'all can talk about that in the comments if you want. Gadgets. Interesting idea. They might implement something like this in the future, though my only issue with it is we already have like a food system that nobody uses because it like only is allowed in the overworld. Let me use food in the endgame. That is the end of my notes on this section. Cool. I got nothing against it. It's nice. Gadget system. Daily challenge. Yeah, my thoughts on this are, yeah, the Relic system, the Cavern of Corrosion, needs to change. I don't think it needs to be as bad. This seems a little bit ridiculous and over the top. Personally, I feel like if we improve the crafting system enough to where this isn't, where you don't need to grind as much with the Cavern of Corrosion, we could mitigate this quite a bit. Ooh, or here's a fun idea that I just came up with right now. What if, in Cavern of Corrosion, you could get a self-modeling resin as a rare drop? Imagine that. Somebody clip that. That's probably a fun idea. And then this terror threshold mode, I don't like it. This seems a little bit ridiculous and over the top. And a little bit way too overly complicated. We already have a few different endgame modes that are overly complicated. I pitched my idea for a survival-based, where it's like horde mode, just wave after wave, each wave gets stronger, and you have a score. I think that's much simpler and doesn't need to be as complicated as this. I like the idea of new combat positions, the idea of adding defend. I don't know what they're talking about with piercing here. I feel like they could have elaborated on this more. And I gave the idea for elemental resonance, like Genshin has, is something that we could also do to mix up team building. And then the rest of this is all just memes. Anyway, this was a fun little recommendation that was given to me via Discord. If you would like to recommend something for me to react to in the future, the best place to do that would be to join my Discord. I let people know there when I'm going to go live and what I'm going to be doing when I go live. So, I look forward to seeing you all there in the future. So, let's keep it civil in the comments. And I'll see you all another time. Stay safe, everyone.